Anyway, he managed to overcome whatever emotional problems he had, even though uh, it took him 4 marriages to find the right woman, and I'm sure that's related to, you know, the bad time I gave him as a young child.
Well, yeah, he channeled everything pretty well together to get into Cal Berkeley and to do really well academically. Was he ever rebellious? Because you would think that would be the recipe for rebellion growing up.
No, he wasn't. As a matter of fact, when Sam and I got married, and Doug was, I guess Doug was 13 and Steve at the time was 12. And Sam suggested that we take both boys out of school and go for a 6-month vacation so that we would all learn to adjust to one another and operate as a family. And we did, but the difference between the two boys was tremendous, but understandable. I had raised Steve to be the man of the family, so he was very dependable, very reliable. Sam, on the other hand, was the man of the family, so he didn't need Doug to be that. So Doug was the baby. So even though there was only 1 year difference between Steve and Doug, it was almost a generation difference in terms of.
Was there a role reversal of some kind where Steve felt that I've got to take care of this little helpless kid or anything?
No, he wasn't a helpless kid. He was, for one thing, he was about a head taller and about 20 pounds heavier, even though emotionally he was still a baby. I think Sam's idea of taking the kids out of school and going to Mexico for 6 months was a good one, because that's when the kids got together. So they had a good time there. Even though when they came back, they went in totally different directions for a long time. And it's only in the past 10, 15 years or so that they became close again. Because Doug went on a rampage. When he graduated from high school, he went up north. I've tried to Oregon. I forget the name of the school. Anyway, and then he got into drugs and all kinds of stuff. We were always getting SOSs from different escapades he was into.
Send money. Help. Huh?
Hmm?
Send money, please, now?
Oh, sometimes that, but sometimes he was in jail,
Get
picked
us
up
out
for
of
this
jail.
or for that. I mean, it just. Of course, when I thought about it, I could understand. I was the third mother he had, and in a sense, the third rejection he had, because his birth mother had put him up for adoption, and Shirley was his second mother, and I guess not too great in that role. And I certainly wasn't that accepting of him, so he had 3 mothers rejecting him. So I could understand in retrospect. I couldn't at the time, but I certainly now can. He didn't have an easy life. And then when he went up north to college, we thought he was still in college, but he dropped out and he got into drinking and drugs and just a mess. But it's interesting, when you think about what's in a name. At a certain point in his life, he decided that Doug Katzman was a failure. And that maybe if he went back to his original name, his birth name, maybe he could start over again. And so he went to a notary or something like that anyway, had his name changed back to David Penland, and he was right. A whole new personality developed.
It's an amazing story.
Yeah. And it was as David Penland that he met,
Carol.
what's her name?
Carol?
Yeah. And he just became a whole new person. It was wonderful, wonderful to see. And he's not only a loving husband, he's an adoring husband.
That's great.
He leaves, she'll open a box of cereal and there'll be a note, "I love you," you know. So she had been married twice unsuccessfully, so she was delighted. She got a bargain. Anyway, the marriage rate in our family, in our extended family, has not been great. I wouldn't say the rate of success is very high in our family.
Yeah. But it all came down, you look at the lineage, that's why family history is so important. You look at the lineage, and it all started in a sense with Nana and Pappy and the tools that they gave their children. And if they didn't give good tools to their children, how do you expect the children to be such raving successes in what they never saw manifested before them? I never saw Nana and Pappy ever show any emotional affection.
I was going to say, one of the things that I was so aware of, when Pappy would come into a room, or when he'd come home from work, he always first went over to Nana and kissed her. It was kind of an obligatory peck on the cheek. Yeah. And aside from that, I never saw them hold hands or pat one another on the face or any slight showing of affection. Never. And of course, Pappy never lost his temper, which made Nana even madder. She'd get mad and he wouldn't, and she'd get into a rage. And of course, with his emphasis on self-control, I never heard him raise his voice ever.
He got upset with me one time because I ate some candy. I think it was grape suckers of some kind, and maybe I shouldn't have or whatever, and I left some part of it in the back of either in the back of the couch or in the body of the couch, and I think maybe some of it might have melted or something, and he let me know that that was unacceptable. He was not happy about that.
But he didn't yell.
He didn't yell.
Yeah.
And then there was another time he got upset with me a second time, and I'm trying to think of I think it was because, I know what it was. I went across the street by myself, and he was very concerned, and I was not supposed to do that. Obviously, I was young. I was probably 4 or 5, but I had crossed the street by myself, and he lectured me on that and told me I was not to do that again. But those were the only 2 times I ever met his disapproval. He was ticked about the candy. It must have melted in the fabric or something, but he was pretty upset about that. But those are the only 2 times that I ever...
But I bet he didn't raise his voice.
No.
Yeah.
Now, and Nana, of course, could just crucify you with a look. You knew you didn't mess with Nana.
Well, I really, in retrospect, feel very sorry for them because what Nana wanted when she was growing up, premarital stage, she wanted a man that had a good job, that could give her a home, a car, and a maid. And Happy supplied all 3.
But why didn't she marry a Gentile? Wouldn't that have been the perfect solution?
I don't know that she had any opportunity. I really don't know. I'm sure she would have preferred that.
Well, and that was the thing that was so illuminating to me when you were talking about your memory and the origins of our family, was the desire to
Not be Jewish.
remove all vestiges of your past, so to speak.
Didn't want to be Jewish and didn't want to be an immigrant. Wanted to be 100% American. And so it was always don't raise your voice, don't talk with your hands, don't, you know, just do they.
Well, it's interesting because I always remembered Nana's infatuation with titles.
With what?
Titles.
Yeah, yeah.
She was so impressed if somebody was a doctor. She
Oh.
was so impressed. And so what you're saying now makes that a lot clearer to me, which I didn't understand when I was a boy. But she would say, "Oh, he's a doctor." And that was a real big deal. She said it with awe and great respect.
Well, that's why she admired Cousin Joseph so much. He was a professor, so she loved to go there in the summertime and
She would take the train out to Urbana.
Yeah.
That he was a
Right.
favorite of hers, no doubt.
yeah.
They had good friends at the time, and when I mentioned them to you the last time, you didn't remember them, but they had their best friends when they lived here. And a couple that they did spend time with were the Stones. It was DeWitt and Lillian Stone, and it was Dr. Stone.
Oh,
And I remember she would always say Dr. Stone, and they did things with the Stones. That was the only
what kind
couple.
of a doctor was he?
I don't remember. I presume medical, but I don't know, but she would always mention Dr. Stone, and that was one couple that they spent time with. The only one I ever remember.
No, the only couple I remember this spending time with was the Jonases, because every Sunday night they played bridge with the Jonases.
That's a different generation. You're talking about in New York. I'm saying when they were here in Los Angeles,
Oh, yeah.
it was, they would be doing something with Dr. Stone and his wife Lillian.
I don't remember them, I don't know. Well, that was another sad mention, because I think Pappy would have given up anything if he could have been a math teacher. That's what he really wanted to be. But when he was, I don't know, 13 or 14, his parents needed him to make some money, so they pulled him out of high school, or whatever he was, and he went to work.
I
So-
did not know that. He didn't complete high school? And he was so sharp.
No, I think he got to the 10th grade, and that's all.
I never knew this.
But of course, he was a voracious reader, so that made up for some of it. But, no, that's why for him education was so important. And if he could have been anything, he would have been a math teacher. It's really so funny how people's lives veer from what they had anticipated or what they had hoped for or what their parents hoped for them.